everybody. Hey, Darren. Check it out, guys. Um, I have my own official Brandon had an accident shirt, and I hope nobody thinks this is in poor taste, especially considering my my big boy passed away last week. Um, but CK sent me this, and I really treasure it. Um, I'll show you guys the rest of it there. It really does. I know CK tried to design it like the slush puppy um, or hush puppy type of dog, but it really, I mean, to me, it looks like my Brandon, and I'm really going to treasure this shirt, and I love it, and really, I feel like it's a memorial of some sorts to Brandon. And I'm sure if Brandon was still here to see it, I'm sure he would love it too. Um, hey, Texas. So I just wanted to show that off. I took off the other shirt I had on and put this one on as soon as I got it. I got a notification from like the shop app that something was arriving today from T Public, and I asked Steve, I was like, "Did you order any t-shirts from T Public?" And he said, "No, not that I know of." And I said, "Well, I didn't either." So I didn't know, I kind of, maybe thought that it could be from CK, possibly. Hey, Blissful. Um, but I think it cemented the deal. I knew whenever I got the package out of the mailbox and looked at the address label that, and it was addressed to uh, Daner Estes Benningfield. Who else calls me Daner, or who started calling me Daner first? But the Dead Pit Boys. So I was like, yeah, this has to be from the guys or from CK. Um, So, yeah, I now have the official Brandon had an accident shirt in memorial of my big boy, who will always be right here in my heart. Um, and on another note, I don't want to make anybody too sad, but Steve did bring our boy home today. So we now have Brandon's ashes in a beautiful cedar box that Steve picked out. Um, and it's sitting on the shelf back in the living room. Right, he's right next to Nene to Linnea. So um, Steve and I made the decision. We buried Sam, who passed away first, but that was like the first pet death I had had since I moved to Louisville, and I. I just didn't know what to do. Sam had been at the vet uh, being fed through tubes and stuff like that for a couple of days before he passed. And then I got the phone call from the vet, and I was just like, I did I was in shock and didn't know what to do and all that. But Steve said from now on, any of our pets that pass away, we're going to have them cremated, um, and keep their ashes, because he says if we move to another location, of course, we're not going to be able to take Sam with us. We can take his stone and everything with us, but I'm not trying to be gruesome, but we can't really dig him up, and that wouldn't be appropriate, and take him to the new location. So, um, any more of our babies pass away, and they will be cremated. And now I understand why people do that now. Um, at first, I was kind of it kind of was cringy for me when Steve wanted to have Linnea cremated. Um, and I said, Steve, I just don't like the thought of the last place our dog is going to be is an oven. And I guess I changed my mind after a little bit because, that is a way, as gruesome as it might sound, to keep your pets, your your loved ones, your pets with you. And I mean, people have people cremated as well. I actually said that, I'm not trying to bring this stream way down. We're going to get to some fun stuff here in a little bit. But I've actually said that I want to be cremated. And I don't want anybody to keep my ashes. I don't want to be in an urn under somebody's bed or something. But I want my ashes to be spread somewhere pretty. Um, and so I guess that's all I'm going to say about death and cremation and all that. Um, Liz, will you say that's not gruesome at all? I appreciate that. That makes me feel a little bit better. Um, so I did want to show off this. And what are we going to talk about tonight? We are going to talk about slasher movie rules. And, I'm going to break down what exactly, we can share our own definitions of what we think a slasher film is, but I have a couple of websites that have lists of slasher movies, and they kind of break down a little bit what exactly a slasher film is. Um, hey, Uncle Bill. Uncle Bill says, bury me upside down so the world can kiss my damn ass. What's up, y'all? Actually, we're going to talk about slasher movie rules tonight, Uncle Bill. Um, in connection with that, I did put the link for anybody that wants to join me live on the stream and talk about slasher films tonight. I mean, you don't necessarily have to restrict it to rules. You could talk about some of your favorite slasher films. And if you don't want to come in live on the stream, feel free to discuss them in the chat um, as I'm going through these different things. So, I mean, I found a hilarious list of uh, slasher movie rules. And you guys that have seen Scream, and I figure that's most, if not all of you in here tonight. Randy, the character of Randy, had rules that were sprinkled throughout um, the Scream movie. And those were the pretty basic, cut and dried, tried and true horror movie rules. Okay. So, but they definitely pertain to slasher movies in particular. And so that's what I wanted to really focus on was the slasher films. Because really, in all honesty, I mean, the slasher film is really what got me into horror. I like all kinds of horror films now. I like sci-fi horror films. I like horror films with monsters. I like, man against nature horror films, all of that stuff. But honestly, what really got me into horror, what really sparked that interest for me was slasher films. And I'm sure there are some, if not most, maybe all of you in here that are the same way. Okay. Um, and, things like The Evil Dead aren't, I guess, slasher films per se, but they build on a lot of slasher film elements. So, what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to break down these. This is a pretty big list of slasher movie rules. Some of them are from Scream. Some of them are ones that people have come up with on their own. And I kind of, you know, it was like the hunt and peck thing. I was picking out ones in particular that I either found really interesting or funny or whatever. The one list that I went through that had a whole bunch of them, somebody was really offended by something this person said about race. And so I hopefully I was being smart, left those out, because right now things are just really tumultuous, and I don't want to say anything that somebody might take the wrong way, okay? Or think that I'm being funny about something that they don't think is funny. So I tried to keep these pretty generic. I mean, some of these are pointed towards females or males, but I don't think we would get in as much trouble with that as we would cultural things, racial things. I definitely don't want anybody to think that I'm being hateful towards one race or culture or anything like that. So, just wanted to let you know that I left all of those off, off the table, pretty much. So, so we are going to talk about that. I'm hoping this will be a fun stream. And I don't know. You guys feel free to share with me if you have seen other streams or videos that somebody's pre-recorded that talked about slasher movie rules in depth. I hadn't really seen any, which is one of the reasons why I decided to do a stream on this. But I'm only one person. So there's only so much that I can see or research or all that. So some of the rest of you might have already seen 50 or more videos that cover the same thing. And you might think, gee, Dana, you're not being original at all, are you? So, sorry if I'm not. I kind of thought I was doing something that was maybe a little original, but you know, I've been known to be wrong. I've been wrong in the past. I could definitely be wrong again. So, what I'm going to do, well, I did want to, as I always do before I do the daily grindhouse, is to talk about some upcoming things, watch alongs in particular, that I got coming up. Okay. So, tomorrow night, starting, we will be able to start at 7 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow night instead of 8 because I will not be working a late shift tomorrow. And yes, I am delayed on getting my advertising, my promotion out for it. I need to try to do that tonight so it'll be up all night and tomorrow. So, tomorrow night, the drive in movie night will be Joe Bob Appreciation Night. We will be watching the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the original Evil Dead. Again, that's starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow night. Friday, June 9th is The Devil Made Me Do It night. We'll be watching The Exorcist and The Omen. Friday, June 16th is Cannibal Night. We will be watching Cannibal Ferox and Cannibal Holocaust. I heard CK make a little joke on the worst zombie films of all time stream that CK, Uncle Bill, and Garrett did last night. And I was actually watching. I think I watched all of it. I had to go back and watch some of it that I missed because I was doing things around the house and stuff like that. But some of it I did watch live. A lot of it I actually watched live. So I heard I heard. Sorry if you hear Reggie out there. I've got to get him in at some point. Hey TJ. But I heard CK make a comment that um, they were going to have, hey, Rooster, they were going to, he and Uncle Bill were going to have Garrett watch Campbell Holocaust. And CK said, and this is not going to be animal cruelty free. So, but as I said, in my household, I'm going to be watching these as animal cruelty free as possible. So, you guys, on the other hand, that come in here for the um, the drive-in movie night on that particular night, June 16th, um, you can watch the full versions if you want to. Um, and again, these things are going to be complete with drive-in totals and all of that. And then when the last drive-in returns on, I believe what is it? Oh shoot, I think it's the 23rd of June. I think is when they're supposed to return. Um, if these few that I'm doing in the interim when they're on hiatus seem to be popular, then I will probably continue them, although I won't do them on Fridays when the last drive in comes back on the air. So, just a little note there. So, as far as watch alongs that are coming up, and again, these drive in movie nights are pretty much like watch alongs as well. Hey, Amy. Amy, you say you have a creepy story about The Exorcist. Well, feel free, Amy, to share that with everybody if you want to. Or you can wait till the drive-in movie night if you want to, but either way is fine. So this weekend, Saturday, June 3rd, the watch along is for Killer Workout. Sunday, June 4th, will be Death Ball. So we're doing 2 horror movies this weekend. June 10th, which again is a few days after my birthday, uh, we will be doing a watch along for Bloody Birthday, and June 11th will be Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And as I've said before, several times, I have the whole month of June worked out. So, June 17th, in honor of the impending Father's Day holiday, will be The Stepfather, the original Stepfather, by the way. June 18th will be the John Cusack joint High Fidelity. June 24th will be Just Before Dawn. And June 25th will be the hilarious Caddyshack. So, got all of that upcoming. Plus, hopefully, TJ and I will be able to finish up our final monsters episode discussion for the final episodes of the third season of Monsters, which should take place on next Wednesday. I am going to have some company on Wednesday. I'm actually taking off that day. My aunt Sandy is coming to Louisville to hang out with me, and I'm going to take her to Wick's Pizza, and we're just going to have a really good time. But hopefully, TJ and I will be able to, in the evening hours, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, be able to cover those final episodes of Monsters. And I don't know what else I've got coming up, but I'm sure I will come up with something or other to kind of sprinkle throughout the coming week. So let's go ahead and get to the Daily Grindhouse. So let's kick it off with this intro. All righty. So I did get something in. Again, haven't had a chance to watch it, so can't talk about the transfer per se. But I did get the 4K of Wes Craven's People Under the Stairs, which, guys, I'll be totally honest about this movie. I'm a huge fan of Wes Craven. However, when this movie first came out, I was not really a big fan of it. But I'll tell you what, this movie has grown on me over the years to where I have a greater appreciation for it and what Wes Craven created with this. Um, and for Twin Peaks fans, you will actually get to see Everett McGill and Wendy Roby playing a husband and wife just like they did in Twin Peaks. Well, not just like they did in Twin Peaks, because both of them are crazy, batshit crazy in this movie. And for those of you that doubt that that's the case, I urge you to watch a version of this. Preferably a for free version before you plunk down any hard earned money for it. TJ, you say Wednesday, you're good as of now for that. All righty. Richie, you say, sounds like fun, Dana, making good memories with family. Yep. That's what it's all about, isn't it? So, yeah, this just came out from Screen Factory. And I had this one pre-ordered for a little bit, for a month or two, I guess. But it has two discs, a 4K and a Blu-ray. So disc one, of course, is a 4K, and you get a new 2023 4K scan of the original camera negative. You get audio commentary with writer and director Wes Craven, audio commentary with actors Brandon Adams, Yan Birch, AJ Langer, and Sean Whalen. Disc 2 is a Blu-ray, which has a new 2023 4K scan of the original camera negative. But really, guys, it's probably, I could be wrong on this, but it's probably not going to look quite as good as the 4K. Maybe I can do a comparison of the two. But honestly, I don't think I ever had a Blu-ray of this. I think the only thing I had prior to this 4K was a DVD. TJ, you might be right that they're brother and sister in Stairs, which makes it even more cringy. I think you're right. It also has audio commentary with Wes Craven and audio commentary with Brandon Adams, Yan Birch, AJ Langer, and Sean Whalen. House Mother, interview with actor Wendy Roby. What Lies Beneath the Effects of the People on the Stairs, featuring interviews with special makeup effects artists Howard Berger, Robert Kurtzman, and Greg Nicotero. House of Horrors, interview with director of photography Sandy Sissel. Setting the Score, interview with composer Don Peet. Behind the scenes footage, theatrical trailer, TV spots, vintage making of featurette, original storyboards, and a still gallery. And again, as soon as I watch this, I will update you guys on what I think of the quality of this on 4K. Okay, so I'm going to put some of this stuff back up here. Amy, you have 362 horror movies. I have lost count of how many horror movies that I actually have. Um, Between me and Steve, we got a ton of them. We really should probably do a complete count at some point. So now that we've got the daily grindhouse out of the way, let's dip into this the slasher movie rules. But first of all, and I'm going to try not to do a lot of reading in this, but I did want to go over a few things. So for people that are in the know, and that's probably not going to be any of us, right? So what is a slasher film? This is supposed to be the definitive guide from filmlifestyle.com with examples. So they basically outline a slasher film as a subgenre of horror films typically involving a psychopathic killer stalking one or more victims. The term slasher originated as a marketing label. However, there is an established audience interest in these films. And I think all of us would agree with that. I don't think any of us in here tonight would disagree with that. Combining elements of horror, comedy, and science fiction, slasher films have developed into a well-defined genre in their own right. The typical film involves an ongoing series of murders by the same individual or group, although some series have been portrayed with a revolving cast of killers. Okay, so what is a slasher film? Okay, slasher films are a subgenre of horror movies that revolve around a psychopath, also known as a slasher or mass murderer, who stalks and subsequently murders people. Title sequences often feature the murder of the previous victim. The killer is frequently depicted as being motivated by revenge. We all know the revenge thing. It was in a ton of slasher movies. The term slasher refers to the way in which the killer slashes at his or her victims with an often bladed weapon. The film typically follows one of two story patterns. One, teenagers or young adults, either as couples or groups, who are stalked at a summer camp, school, or somewhere else isolated by someone with a motive of revenge. I think we'd all agree with that. Two, in some cases, a psychopathic killer simply stalks and murders people at random, like Final Exam, for instance. The genre was first popularized by director John Carpenter with his 1978 film Halloween. Now, some of you might disagree with that. You might, think that Black Christmas popularized it. But, Black Christmas, for me, definitely I refer to it as a slasher film. And if you really think about it in historically, in terms that what we know about Black Christmas now, yeah, definitely it was a forerunner before Halloween. Okay, but with me, Black Christmas was not one that I heard about. I heard about Halloween way before I did Black Christmas. So some hardcore fans distinguish between true slashers, which adhere strictly to the conventions of the genre, and slasher films, which feature similar themes but fall outside the genre's conventions. Okay. So we have another little definition here. What is a slasher movie? From the music to the blood and the death scenes, slasher movies are some of the most entertaining movies ever made. I don't think any of us in here would disagree with that. They are also one of the most popular genres in film history. Trying to determine what makes a good slasher movie is a difficult task since there are so many different ones out there. Some have been brilliant, while others have failed miserably. Again, I think all of us would agree with that. The characters and plots are what make a movie great or not so great. There are literally thousands of different factors that go into making a movie great, and it's hard to nail it down to one thing. However, we can look at some key points that can make or break a slasher film. The plot is extremely important in any movie, but especially in a slasher film. Now, okay, I kind of disagree with that. Because there are some slasher movies that I've watched where I don't give a shit about the plot. The thing is just fun. Um, I don't know who's calling me. Hold on a second, guys. Talk about distractions. I want to turn that phone off. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm going to have to ban myself because I forgot to turn that phone off. And it was my aunt sending me a call through Messenger. I'll have to check on that later. Um, well, thank you, Wes. You say, hey, Dana, the shirt looks good on you. How's everybody doing? I'm doing pretty good. I hope everybody else is doing good in here. Yes, TJ, exactly. Don't forget Peeping Tom and Psycho. Halloween was more like them than the glut of 80s slashers after it, but yeah, different opinions. But I'm glad you brought those up too. Right. Back after these messages, LOL. Oh, good one, Darren. The Spiral Staircase from 1946. Yeah, see, that is why I love doing things like this because it gets those thoughts flowing, and everybody throws out different things here and there, and I just think that is awesome. So keep it up, guys. Um, so the person writing this basically says you need to keep the audience engaged or they will lose interest very quickly. I agree with that, but I think though the thing about the plot, it being extremely important, I can't even talk. Extremely important in a slasher film is, I don't, I don't totally agree with that. A typical slasher film has several characters introduced in an isolated location, usually a campground, forest, or summer cabin. I agree with that. The location is visited by the mysterious figure who often wears masks or bizarre clothing. Don't forget the ominous background music, very important. Agree with all of those. Often victims are stalked one at a time until only one character remains to be killed in the final scene by the murderer, who often has a signature weapon. Okay. Um, but they kind of left out something. They kind of indicate, or I took it this way, by that there is no final girl or final guy. Um, and we all know there were several films, especially in the 80s, that had final girls. Slashers are typically not concerned with providing explanations for their crimes. They exist simply to kill off characters in increasingly spectacular ways. That's kind of counterproductive to what they said earlier, because if a lot of the slasher films have a revenge scenario, so that is an explanation for the crimes. There are a few, again, like Final Exam, where it's just some guy just pulls up outside of a college like he does in final exam or another location and just says, hmm, yeah, I think I'll just pull in here and start killing people. Slasher films appeared long before the term was coined and were not exclusive to any single filmmaker or studio. It was not until the release of Halloween in 1978 that the subgenre began to enjoy popularity and widespread success, which again is probably why a lot of people didn't think of Black Christmas for so long. I'm not a fan of torture porn, but let's talk about it a little bit. Torture porn is supposedly a subgenre of slasher horror films that focuses on the infliction of pain or mutilation as entertainment. While most slasher films involve a single killer, torture porn usually follows multiple torturers and their victims in an anthology format. The term is often used to describe movies with graphic violence, though it can also apply to movies with gratuitous nudity, sex, gore, or profanity. Now, here we go. We don't want to forget Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 1974, Black Christmas also from 1974, and then we got into Halloween in 1978 and Friday the 13th in 1980. And then we officially, what I like to refer to as the golden age of the slasher film. These films were released during the height of the video nasty scare in England, when violent exploitation films made by independent filmmakers were blamed for a wave of crimes committed by teenagers. Some critics have written that these early slasher films were inspired by real-life serial killers like Ed Gein and John Wayne Gacy. In the end credits of Halloween, there was even a disclaimer that the film was intended as a fictional story. Now, that's interesting, guys, because I don't ever remember seeing that disclaimer in the end credits to Halloween. Does anybody remember that disclaimer? TJ, you say, Halloween led to Friday the 13th. You could argue Friday really started the huge slasher trend as far as box office and people wanting to recreate it. Yeah, I agree to some extent with that, TJ. I really do think that Friday the 13th led to the what I what I referred to before as the quote unquote golden age of slashers. So yes, definitely. Um, so if anybody remembers seeing that in the end credits to Halloween, please share. So let's talk a little bit about slasher horror movie characters. The first movie in this genre that they specify was Black Christmas, 1974, followed by Halloween in 1978 and Prom Night in 1980. The genre reached its peak with the release of A Nightmare on Elm Street 1984, which was released over the course of 2 years and grossed $25 million at the box office. The boom continued with Friday the 13th in 1980, My Bloody Valentine in 1981, Sleepaway Camp 1983, Silent Night, Deadly Night 1984, April Fool's Day 1986. I don't include a Return to Salem lot, but they do because that has to do with vampires. It doesn't have to do with slashing to me. The Stepfather and Happy Birthday to Me, both in 1981. Also, there are many subgenres that borrow from the slasher genre, including home invasion, killer kids, medical thrillers, supernatural thrillers, asylum slasher, psychological thriller, holiday themed, or Christmas themed film, which I don't think they needed to divide that up into holiday and Christmas. Just say holiday theme. So in the 1970s and 1980s, slasher movies were at the height of their popularity. Blood, guts, and gore filled the big screen as serial killers found new ways to get revenge on their victims. The killers weren't born with a serial killer mentality, but rather their circumstances turned them into monsters. Now, yeah, but think about Michael Myers, which a lot of us have talked about Michael Myers and how you don't really need to explain in detail why Michael Myers does what he does. Why did he grow up, or why did he stab his sister at 6 years old? And why did he continue to want to kill people um, 15 years later? Right. So I just feel like, you know, we don't really need to have that excellent explanation. But see, I take a little bit, I don't really agree with that. The killers weren't born with serial killer mentality. Because if you look at a character like Michael Myers, it does seem that somewhere along the way, Michael Myers went wrong. Okay. And at the age of 6, he's stabbing his sister to death. So that kind of leads me to believe maybe he was born bad. Maybe he was born with a few screws loose for that at that young of an age to get the idea that he's going to kill his sister. TJ, you say, I mean, Friday ripped off Halloween. It can go on and on. LOL. Yes, it definitely it does, and it continues to go on to some extent. Darren, you say, agreed, TJ. Friday really did kickstart it all. Silent Scream 1979 was one of the most successful slasher films of that period, too. I think it was released in 1980, but made a year before. Another good one to bring up, Silent Scream, Darren. I haven't seen Silent Scream in a while. I need to go back and revisit that one. Um, In recent years, there has been a decline in the number of these films being produced for mainstream audiences as filmmakers seek out new ways to scare their viewers. But in my opinion, it's not nearly as effective. I don't think what filmmakers are doing now is nearly as effective as those mid to late 70s into the 80s slashers. So let's talk a little bit about key elements of slasher movies. The slasher film genre has been criticized for its over reliance on graphic violence, nudity, and gore. The key elements of a slasher film are plot. Plot is the structure that connects you beginning, middle, and end. It's about how you will build up suspense, tension, and release it, keeping your audience interested all the time. Okay. Here again, I don't think plot is 100% essential to a slasher film in all cases. I'll just say that. Plot is not just the sequence of events that happen in the story, it's all those events combined with what you experience as you watch it. If you have a short attention span or are easily bored, there's a good chance you won't like this type of story. Pacing. Pacing is about how fast or slow you write your story. If a movie is too fast, it will be over in 2 hours and leave your audience unsatisfied. Honestly, I like my slasher films to be under 2 hours. I think they're probably thinking more about these modern horror films. If it's too slow, no one will be interested after 20 minutes because they fell asleep and missed something important. Your pacing will depend on your plot because pacing comes from plot. Okay. So, again, what was the first slasher film? Of course, this depends on who you ask. Everybody's going to have different ideas about what the first slasher film was. So, what was the first slasher film? The answer might surprise you. And again, keep in mind, this is what somebody is writing and putting on the internet. Despite what you might think, the first slasher film wasn't Halloween or Friday the 13th. Instead, it was a little known movie called Black Christmas, which some of you may agree or not agree with. Released in 1974, the film follows a group of sorority sisters being stalked by a killer over the Christmas holiday. And it's considered to be one of the progenitors of the subgenre known as slasher films. Black Christmas is a Canadian horror movie that actually predates the better known Halloween by 9 months. While it wasn't technically the first slasher film, it introduced many key elements that are now associated with these types of movies. For starters, it features a mass killer who stalks teenage girls, a trope that would later become inseparable from slasher films. Okay, now, if they're still talking about Black Christmas did not have a mass killer, as far as I know. So, on that. Even more interestingly, it was one of the first movies to include multiple murders within its runtime, which is something that would become commonplace in future films of this genre. Despite its status as a true classic of horror cinema, Black Christmas has never received a sequel or remake, or even a direct ripoff for that matter. Evidently, this must have been written before those Black Christmas remakes. Okay, so you guys and gals interested in Giallo films, they do have a description of what Giallo films is. So let's go ahead and talk about those two. Today, Giallo films are known for their stylish set pieces, masterful use of color, and bloody violence. However, the genre's roots lie in mystery novels and pulp thrillers. Okay, so this person lists the first Giallo film, The Mask of Satan, aka Black Sunday, was released in 1960. It was directed by Mario Bava, who would go on to helm dozens of other Giallo films throughout his career. Now, here's where we might disagree here, me and some of you guys and gals in the chat. I have always said I'm not a fan of Black Sunday, and I'm not a fan of Barbara Steele. Sorry, guys and gals that love Barbara Steele. Dirk, if you're in here somewhere, sorry. So I never thought Black Sunday is a Giallo film at all. But you guys and gals in here, if you think that that is a Giallo film, have at it. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. TJ, you could call Alien a slasher movie, but I tend to not call it a slasher movie. Just because I guess I'm just anal about the whole thing. But, if somebody else wants to call it a slasher movie, then I'm all for that. Darren, you say, I think The Old Dark House from 1932 as one of the first. Also, 13 Women, 1932, and Night of Terror, 1933. I think I saw 13 Women listed on one of these lists I was looking at, Darren. Thank you, Darren. You said Black Sunday is not a Giallo. You say Hypnosis 1962 was one of the first Giallos. I'd like to see that, but I don't think I've seen Hypnosis. Exactly. The Girl Who Knew Too Much is regarded as the first. So, that's another reason why I wanted to see what other people were saying, because it stimulates conversation. We can say, no, that's not what I feel about that. And then we get to bring up other movies that we think or we feel like fall into that category, whether we're talking about slashers or Giallos or whatever. The 1960s also saw a rise in Giallo novels written by Italian authors like Giorgio Cerabonico, I'm probably massacring these names, and Camille De Angelis. These novels then inspired more Italian filmmakers to experiment with the murder mystery genre. Films like Blood and Black Lace from 1964 focused on stylish set pieces and colorful imagery to tell stories of murder and mayhem. As is often the case with cinematic trends, the United States soon caught on to this emerging genre. In 1971, director Dario Argento released his directorial debut, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. This giallo thriller is considered to be a classic in the genre and helped establish Argento as one of the most prominent directors of his generation. So, that's a little bit of background on slasher films in general and a little bit about giallo films. Um, Uncle Bill, you said I thought it was 4 caterpillars on cotton pants. Darren, you said the telephone segment in Black Sabbath could be regarded the first also. Interesting, Darren. These are all, see, again, this gets the discussion flowing. And that's what I always like to do with these different streams. And I'm just looking back there. I realize I forgot to turn on my astronaut light, but I don't think anybody's really cares at this point. TJ, you say not a movie, but, and then there were none from 1939. People in a mansion getting picked off one by one. Exactly, TJ. Perfect. See, I love all of this different discussion that we're having. Okay, so the University of Kentucky in Lexington actually has a research guide in their library guides about slasher films. And they actually say introduction to the splatter film, which is something else that people will refer to slasher films as a splatter film. Or as my dad used to so eloquently put it, cut up films. So, slasher films are a genre of horror most popular from the late 50s to the early 90s, defined by its use of generally mass killer harassing and murdering groups of people. The genre and its popular films created many of the tropes we see in horror today, and many franchises have been spawned out of the films. And they go on to say the films listed here are simply examples and are not a comprehensive list. So they talk about Psycho, first off, 1960. They list it as perhaps the most famous horror movie of all time, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Follows Secretary Marion Crane, who steals money and runs off to a motel to escape with the cash, where her run-in with Norman Bates leads her to her demise, and an investigation sprawls out of it. It's renowned for having a nearly on-screen murder, the first of its kind that chilled audiences everywhere. It also deals with themes of psychoanalysis, something that will become very important to the slasher genre in later years. Halloween from 1978 is an American slasher film that gave us two of the most important characters to the horror film canon, Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. This is a film that drew on some of the tropes of prior films, like the themes of holidays and the babysitter not going upstairs from Black Christmas, and then took them and created so many more that will become used in nearly every slasher film after. And she wasn't a babysitter in Black Christmas, though. I hate to tell them. What is most interesting about Halloween is its dealing with the nearly incestuous relationship between Michael and Laurie, with Laurie becoming a mother figure for Michael and Michael wanting to punish her for that. Also important is the fact that any woman who is sexual within the film dies, and we're going to get to that more in depth when we actually get to the rules. While Laurie, the pure virgin and final girl, another trope that this film originated, survives because she is chased. This film created the slasher genre as we know it today. Next is Friday the 13th from 1980. It's the slasher film that originated one of the most famous killers of them all, Jason Voorhees. The film itself is known for being quite gory and disturbing, and also for pushing the trope of people being murdered at a summer camp. What is interesting about Friday the 13th is that despite being known for originating Jason Voorhees, the first film's killer is actually his mother, Pamela Voorhees. They mentioned Scream pretty much right off the bat. It's like third or fourth one down. Scream from 1996 is the last great slasher of the genre, in this person's opinion that wrote this. Directed by Wes Craven. It came after the golden era of slashers that brought us things like Halloween and Friday the 13th, but it did revive the genre in a way that many other films failed to do, which in a lot of ways I agree with. It called upon many tropes common in horror, such as the masked killer, the phone call, and even the final girl, and it parodied itself in a dark way, not leaning into comedy, but absolutely leaning into the common themes and tropes of horror. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974, is an American horror film that terrified audiences of the time. It was massively violent. Disagree with that. Featuring some of the most gruesome deaths in film history. Disagree, because we don't actually see all this. Such as someone being thrown onto a meat hook and left to die. And of course, multiple deaths by chainsaw. It's critically important to the slasher genre because it brought about one of the most important killers in slasher history, Leatherface, and also dealt with themes of cannibalism and safety and where you choose to go. All right. Although I don't agree with all the descriptions of these movies, we're like, all of us in here now are pretty much hardcore horror fans. So, of course, we're going to pick this stuff apart. TJ, you say, didn't Samara Weaving do a class about slashers? Haha. I might lean towards that, Darren. You say, would anyone consider The Cat and the Canary from 1927 a slasher? TJ says that might probably be a predecessor to the slasher, Darren. Yes, Darren, you are exactly right. People say that TCM is not a slasher, but it clearly is. A mass maniac offing kids one by one. Yep. Just because he's using a chainsaw rather than a knife or something. TJ, you say there's the H.D. Lewis movies that were most definitely slasher. Oh, yes. You are correct there, TJ. Continuing with this list from the University of Kentucky, When a Stranger Calls from 1979 they list this as an American psychological thriller film known for having one of the scariest opening intros in film history. I would definitely have to agree with that. The film drew on the tropes presented in Black Christmas with the babysitter and the phone, based off a popular urban myth. And this opening sequence will go on to inspire the opening scene of Wes Craven's Scream. Child's Play from 1988 is an American slasher film giving us one of the most unique killers in the genre, a doll. Chucky, a good guy doll with the soul of a serial killer, is one of the most iconicized murderers in the genre, up there with the likes of Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers. The film is a rather typical cookie cutter slasher, but using a literal possessed doll as your killer is fascinating for the slasher genre and is a callback to prior horror films that use possession as their vessel for horror. So we're actually going to get to 13 Women, guys. But before that, they have I Know What You Did Last Summer listed on this. This is not one that I would put on a really good list of slasher films. And here's why. because this came after Scream when it seemed like, Scream did good to revive a dying subgenre, okay? And revitalize horror in general. But this a lot of the junk that came after it, and yes, I am calling it junk, um, did nothing to, in my opinion, help the genre or the subgenre. And I consider I Know What You Did Last Summer one of those. But it was from 1997. Is an American slasher film credited alongside Scream with revitalizing the slasher genre. It is an exploration of teen exploitation and horror, specifically slashers. The film set up many of the tropes that, along with Scream, would be later parodied in Scary Movie, a parody of slasher films. The film as a whole sticks to the common tropes of a slasher, but with the added effect of the victims all turning against each other, creating even more terror. What I think when they do that, if it's overdone, it just is annoying. But you guys could have other ideas about. Which brings us to 13 Women from 1932, is perhaps the earliest example of what would become a slasher film. It documents 11, not 13, as two women's scenes were cut before the theatrical release. Women being harassed and murdered after a clairvoyant uh, mails them a horoscope foreseeing swift doom. Black Christmas, 1974, is a Canadian psychological thriller and slasher film and is critically important to the slasher genre. Hailed as the first great slasher of its time, it originated many of the tropes that other films would add onto and iconicize, such as the trope of the babysitter not going upstairs. Again, Jess was not a babysitter, she was a sorority sister. And dealing with horror and murder during the holidays. Halloween would be heavily influenced by this film. A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984, is a revolutionary slasher of the horror genre, introducing Freddy Krueger to the horror canon. It draws heavily on the themes of sexual promiscuity leading to death that Halloween introduced, and also plays with the idea of manifestations of dreams into reality. The film subtly suggests that Krueger is a pedophile, and in earlier iterations of the script, he was. But this was cut in favor of not angering the general public with a depiction of a pedophile. The final film that the University of Kentucky lists is It Follows. I don't know if I would call I like It Follows, but I don't know if I would classify it as a slasher movie. But you guys feel free to disagree with me there. It Follows was from 2014, is an American supernatural horror film, which, okay, so they say it's not necessarily a slasher, but does include many of the tropes present in slasher films. It follows a woman, Jay, who through sex is cursed with an entity who will follow her, and if it ever catches her, will kill her. It must be passed on by having a one night stand with someone else, and if it catches that person, it returns to the former. The film plays with the idea of sexuality as a bad thing, not necessarily in the same way prior horror did, but it certainly is commentary on the idea of sexuality being punished. So now we're going to cover one more thing, and I'm just going to give you the list. I'm not going to go into complete details about all of these movies. And then we're going to get to the rules, which was the main part of this stream. Okay. So let me scroll back up to the top here. And you guys feel free to agree or disagree on any and all of these. But I do want to give another quick definition of a slasher movie from this pastemagazine.com article. But first, I'm going to step away a second and get Reg in. But I am going to see what you guys are putting in the chat here. Ah, Texas, yes, especially Blood Feast. Darren agrees too. He says Blood Feast for sure. Ah, yes, TJ, the bad seed. I'd say that's in the ballpark. I would too, TJ. Texas agrees. So you haven't seen the bad seed, Darren? Oh, yeah, you need to see that one. Darren, you say I'm in the minority, but I love all the Scream knockoffs, most anyway. No, that's okay. That is cool. TJ, you say it's from 1956, Darren, based on a play, but the movie version, I agree with Texas, is a must see. Darren, you kind of agree with me. It Falls, not a slasher, has elements though. TJ, you say, I will say I Know What You Did Last Summer has a really great suspense and chase scene with Sarah Michelle Gellar and has some other cool moments. Yeah, I would agree with that. I guess I was just, I was excited when Scream came out, and I do still feel like it revitalized things. Horror was pretty much overall dead in the water at that point in time, and I was thankful for Scream. But then I don't think I Know What You Did Last Summer was the worst of those that spun off from Scream. But it set things on a path. And then it just seemed like there for a little bit, they just got worse and worse. Then you say, TJ, I prefer part two, but I agree. I Know What You Did Last Summer has some really cool stuff. And, maybe I just need to revisit it because, I say a lot of times that, sometimes if I wait a while and I watch something again, I have a greater appreciation for it than the first time around. Oh, yeah. Did Arrow release that recently, Darren, or who was it that released that one? For some reason, I was thinking it was Arrow. And, and Steve actually was watching that. I think he probably downloaded it. I know he didn't buy it. Yeah, for some reason that one slipped past my radar, and I really want to go back and watch it. But you say you enjoyed it for what it is. You say yes, Arrow. Okay, cool. I'm even thinking about if Arrow still has some copies left of getting it from Arrow. And Steve would probably say, "Why'd you do that?" But whatever. Anyway, so defining PaceMagazine.com says defining slasher movie. They say one, slasher villains are human. The likes of Ridley Scott's Alien make for an interesting inclusion on slasher-centric list, but the unknowable alien intelligence of the xenomorph removes that intimacy we referenced earlier, which demands a human, or at least formerly human, killer whose actions are obsessively evil. Slasher films have a body count. Slasher villains are never one and done. They need at least a modest group of potential victims and often need to rack up a few early kills to establish both their modus operandi and threatening credibility. A slasher villain may primarily stalk a single protagonist through the course of a film, but he cuts a path through others in order to get there. Because it's the kills themselves that the audience is there to see. Three, home invasion movies are not automatically slasher movies. I would have to agree with that. Many home invasion movies, such as The Strangers or Hush, share common elements with the slasher genre. The killers in both films wear a mask, for instance. but in both cases are stalking a single woman in the confines of her own home, violating the group nature and body count rules necessary to slashers. As another Paste writer put it during our discussion, I draw a big distinction between home invasion and slashers, even though they have so much in common. Home invasion movies operate more on tension than violence. I don't know if I'd agree with that totally. The Strangers is an exercise in suspense rather than gore. Slashers generally focus on turning murder into a creative exercise. Okay. So let's break these down. They've got number 50, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 from 1987. Number 49 is Pieces from 1982. Number 48, I Know What You Did Last Summer from 1997. Number 47, Hell Night from 1981. Number 46 is Happy Death Day from 2017. Number 45, the Fear Street Trilogy from 2021. Number 44, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, 1988. Number 43, Maniac, 1980. Number 42, Prom Night from 1980. Number 41, Terror Train, also from 1980. Number 40, The Slumber Party Massacre, 1982. Number 39, Intruder, 1989. Number 38, April Fool's Day, 1986. Number 37, Halloween 2, 1981. Number 36, Urban Legend, 1998. Number 35, big Sergio Martino fans are going to be happy here. Torso, 1973. Number 34, The Final Girls, 2016. Number 33, Child's Play, 1988. Number 32, Friday the 13th, Part 2, 1981. Number 31, The House on Sorority Row, 1983. This isn't the original Scream, but number 30 is Scream from 2022. Number 29, Friday the 13th, 1980. Number 28, Alone in the Dark, 1982. Number 27, The Prowler, 1981. Number 26, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, 1994. Number 25, X from 2022. Number 24, Candyman, 1992. Number 23, A Bay of Blood, a.k.a. Twitch of the Death Nerve, 1971. Number 22, Sleepaway Camp, 1983. Number 21, You're Next from 2011. Number 20, Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon from 2006. Number 19, Friday the 13th, Part 4, The Final Chapter, 1984. Number 18, Stage Fright, a.k.a. Aquarius, 1987. Number 17, My Bloody Valentine, 1981. Number 16, Tenebrae, 1982. Number 15, The Funhouse from 1981. I don't know how I feel about The Funhouse being classified as a slasher. I guess maybe. Number 14, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, 1987. Number 13, Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives, 1986. Number 12, Scream from 1996. Number 11, Opera, 1987. Number 10, Alice Sweet Alice, 1976. Which, keep in mind, guys, was also before Halloween. The Burning, 1981. Number 8, Blood and Black Lace, 1964. Number 7, Deep Red, 1975. Dario Argento's killing it on this list. Number 6, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. Number 5, Peeping Tom, 1960. Number 4, Psycho, also from 1960. Number 3, Black Christmas, 1974. Number 2, A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984. And number 1 is Halloween from 1978. So, let's see. TJ said, I've been wanting to see that, Darren, like Anna Faris's first movie, I think. Darren, you say, yes, complete. I Know What You Did Last Summer, knockoff, but fun. TJ, you said, these people who write articles never admit to opinions over facts. Haha. Exactly, TJ, I agree. Darren, you say, I think Hush, you could consider a slasher. Also, The Collector 2009 is one too. TJ, you say, with the criteria, you could argue Happy Death Day isn't 100% slasher. Right. The killer kills one person for the majority of the movie, even with other deaths. Huh? Darren, you say, awesome. Torso made the list. Where's Tenebrae? Yeah, Tenebrae was up there a little bit further. Darren, you say, I consider it one. TJ, heard the sequel isn't. Darren, you say, I'm happy with this list. Texas, you say, the sequel is really good in my opinion, though, because they took an interesting idea and ran with it instead of making a stale sequel. Okay, so I don't hear anybody really screaming over that list. I thought there were some really good ones on that list. Some of them a little questionable, in my opinion, but for the most part, pretty good, pretty decent list. So, TJ, you say, yeah, Darren, about death day. I was just bringing that up because of what Dana was reading about. Only one death doesn't constitute a slasher, LOL. Okay, so let's get to the rules now, shall we? And you guys can, talk about these rules. You can say if you agree, disagree, if you think it's totally off the mark or whatever. Yeah, I kind of feel that way about some of these lists, especially the list that you will now find on the internet. A hipster list, but some good movies. Right, exactly. We kind of have to take a lot of these lists with a grain of salt, don't we? So let's get to these rules, okay? And I took these from a variety of sites, so just bear with me on these. Some of them are just really hilarious. So, 1, don't have sex, but if you really must have sex, enjoy it. Intercourse, especially when it's good, frivolous, or on a campsite, only leads to gory, naked death. How many times have we seen that, guys? Not just in the Friday the 13th movies, but in other places as well. Number 2, if you killed someone as a child or teen, even by accident, be prepared to die at either a prom or school party before you graduate. That's been done in a ton of films. Number 3, said person you killed, see number 2, might not actually be dead, but rather mutilated and deranged and looking for revenge. How many times have we seen that, guys? Number 4, you will likely be scantily clad. Yes, even you gentlemen, when the killer comes for you. Number 5, women. If a man is trying to kill and capture you, he will definitely kill your good looking, kind hearted boyfriend first, so you have even less to live for. Darren, you say surprised all the Italian films mentioned. Yeah, I was too. TJ, you say me too, Darren. But with all the 4Ks coming out and more people online mentioning things, can get people to make lists like that. Yeah, because I think what that does is that just reintroduces the movies to an audience that was already there. Plus, hopefully, a new audience will also check these things out. All right, back to our list here. Uh, Number 6, there is no such thing as being too afraid to scream, and you'll die long before piercing cries destroy your vocal cords. Number 7, any potential killer will be genetically blessed with super strength and endurance, not to mention immortality. And we've seen that in so many slasher movies. Number 8, there will be no happy ending. The best you can hope for is to live a life of extreme PTSD or being absorbed into an evil entity or spirit. Both options often better than the lesser sequel. I love this one. Number 9, don't walk around saying hello. Like the killer is going to reply, yeah, I'm in the kitchen. Want a sandwich? Number 10, upstairs, bad idea. Outside, don't go there. Phone, never works. Gun, don't drop it. Car, won't start. Neighbors, never home. Police, always die. Number 11, if something licks your hand in the darkness, it's not your dog. Your dog is dead. Number 12, if you're running around completely naked, you might as well just murder yourself. Number 13, if you open the door and there is a man standing there holding an axe, he didn't come to chop firewood. Number 14, never go to the toilet alone. If needs be, poop your pants. It's much safer. Number 15, leave slow or clumsy friends behind. Every man for himself. Somebody's got to live to tell the story. This one I thought was funny and kind of endearing too, because as much as the next person, I'm a huge fan of Scooby-Doo. But number 16 is don't split up and look for clues. Everything you learn from Scooby-Doo is wrong. Number 17, never say I'll be right back, because you won't be right back. And that came home to us in Scream, right? Number 18, if you're running from the killer, you're going to trip and fall down at least twice. More if you're a girl. And I'm not trying to be sexist, guys. I mean, I had to put that one in there because it does certainly seem to be true. Number 19, if you trip and fall, don't lay there with the ow, it hurts face. Get up and continue running. Number 20, if the killer is chasing you, you don't have to run fast. Just run faster than your friends. Number 21, no matter how fast you run, the killer will always be right behind or in front of you, despite the fact that he is shuffling along at a slower and more dramatic pace. How many Friday the 13th movies have we seen that? But as the game, Reggie, what are you doing? As the game, Friday the 13th has shown us, Jason can teleport. Number 22, if you're pointing a gun at the killer, don't say, if you move, I'll shoot. I'm serious. Just shoot him already. Number 23, just lay down on the floor and pretend to be dead. Hey, it works for bears, doesn't it? Number 24, never back out of one room into another without looking. Number 25, if you see something moving, hit it with a baseball bat, even if it turns out to be your friend. Swing first, say sorry later. Number 26, don't trot around the house shouting, "Hey, is anybody there?" Of course there's somebody there, dummy. And how many times have we yelled these things out at the screen when we're watching a horror movie and or slasher movie? Number 27, never take a shower. Killers love showers. Anyway, sweaty people are slippery and harder to catch. Number 28, if you're a girl, get a boyfriend. He'll be horribly murdered in front of you, but at least you'll live. Number 29, if you hear weird noises, don't go to investigate. You're not Dora the Explorer. Number 30, if you've beaten the killer into a bloody pulp and you're sure he must be dead, take the opportunity to dismember, burn, eat, blow up, or otherwise destroy him. Number 31, if somebody claims that there's nothing wrong, something is horribly, horribly wrong. Number 32, if you're asked to babysit during a storm, on Halloween, on Friday the 13th, or during a full moon, just say, sorry, no can do. Number 33, don't pick up hitchhikers and don't hitchhike. If you do both, then the worst case scenario is you could end up picking yourself up and murdering yourself. Number 34, if one of your friends is injured, leave them behind. Even if it's just a skinned knee, that qualifies as an injury. Leave them. Number 35, always have your keys at the ready. You don't want to be fumbling in your bag going, oh, where are they? I'm sure I have them somewhere, while the killer closes in. Number 36, drips are never good. If you hear a dripping sound, it's blood. Likewise, if you hear a clang, it's a meat cleaver, and if you hear a thunk, it's a severed head. TJ, you say, also teleporting skills. Jason worked on the Enterprise, I'm sure. LOL. Plus, whatever you do, don't fall asleep. TJ says, don't read the demon possessed book. Texas good one. Don't order pizza when you have a slumber party. And TJ says, don't have a slumber party in the first place. Okay, back to this list here. Let's see. Number 37, if there is a scary legend, believe it. It's real. It doesn't matter if the legend says the killer has an onion for a head or a bear trap for a mouth. It's real, and he's coming for you tonight. Number 38, if someone says, it's just the wind, guys, everything's fine, stop overreacting. You should reply, yeah, well, I hope I won't overreact when you're dead and stuff beneath the floorboards. Number 39, avoid screaming, crying, whispering, panting, wheezing, or breathing heavily when you're trying to hide. Killers are not deaf. Number 40, never bend down to spit out your toothpaste. When you come back up, there will be someone standing behind you in the mirror. Number 41, never go downstairs to check out a weird noise, especially not in your underwear. Number 42, if your friends go to check out a strange noise and don't return, don't go looking for them. Just make new friends. Number 43, if you're babysitting a kid and they tell you they saw someone scary at the window, tell them to stand at the window and wave while you hide. Number 44, do not hide where you obviously could be seen, like behind a lamp, idiot. Now, how many times have we seen that stuff, guys? Number 45, if you're babysitting and the phone rings, don't answer it. Just go home and leave the kids to fend for themselves. Number 46, always check the back seat of the car. 9 out of 10 times the killer will be crouched there going, "Aw, dude, you caught me." Number 47, if you're not sure who's the killer and who's the innocent person, shoot them all and let God sort them out. Number 48, if some idiot in the group says, let's split up, tell him, okay, you go that way, the rest of us will go this way. Number 49, never under any circumstances run upstairs if you are being chased. Once you get upstairs, there's nowhere left to go. Number 50, make sure the killer is dead. If the killer isn't dead, they will just keep coming back. Number 51, okay, under the bed is not a real hiding spot. What self respecting killer wouldn't check under the bed? Number 52, if you find your friend stabbed 78 times and lying in a pool of blood, don't go, oh my God, what happened? You know what happened. Number 53, the killer never dies the first time. Wait until he gets up, then kill him again. Number 54, never look behind you while running away. When you look back, the killer will be standing in front of you. Number 55, hide in the fridge, a la madman. Killers don't get hungry and stop for munchies during a murder spree. Number 56, make sure your car has a full tank of gas. Number 57, don't stop at a gas station and ask the creepy old man for directions. He's not going to help you. Number 58, after you shoot the killer, don't drop your gun. Number 59, never get into a car. It will either not start, break down, run out of gas, or you will lose the keys. Either way, the killer will be hiding in the back seat. Number 60, if a policeman arrives, don't get your hopes up. He will be killed just before he reaches you. Number 61, find a good hiding place and stay there. If the killer can't see or hear you, why would you move? Number 62, never attempt to pull off the killer's mask. You won't like what you see. Number 63, never assume the killer is dead. Shoot him, stab him, chop off his arms, legs, and head, then burn the pieces and put them out with holy water. If possible, rocket his charred remains into space. Even then, he probably won't be dead. Number 64, never yell things like, it's over now, or we made it. That guarantees that it's not over and you won't make it. Number 65, if you spot a weird dude in your garden holding a chainsaw, he is not there to trim your hedges. Number 66, don't get drunk or do drugs. Escaping from a killer is much harder when you're stumbling around and singing to yourself. Killers in horror movies have an extra special hatred of drunk or stoned teenagers. Number 67, don't go outside just because you hear a noise. That's like coming out and saying, here I am, I'm ready to be murdered now. Number 68, protect yourself. Find a weapon. Gun, knife, chainsaw equal weapons. Umbrella, mop, lamp equal not weapons. Number 69, if your dad goes insane and starts hacking down your bedroom door with an axe, don't try to reason with him. Jump out the window. Number 70, if you hear a scary noise and find out that it's just the cat, the next scary noise you hear won't be just the cat. Number 71, if your girlfriend is a hot cheerleader, dump her for the weird chick that nobody likes. Weird chicks never get killed. Cheerleaders always die. Number 72, if the calls are coming from inside the house, get outside the house. Okay? And so that officially breaks down the list that I compiled of horror movie rules. Darren, you say, would you consider the original Wrong Turn a slasher? I would in part 2 also. Yeah, I guess you could consider those slashers. Texas, you say, I like part 2 the best, but I would, Darren. Texas, you say you like the recent remake. I think I have to agree with Darren that Darren says I wasn't too big on the remake. The Hills Have Eyes, however, that's a remake. TJ, you say, nah, you always take off the mask, especially when the audience don't know who it is. LOL. TJ also brings up another very good point that an umbrella was a weapon in Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. So, guys, I think I've talked slashers to death pretty much tonight. Um, and I can stay on here a little while longer. This has been a kind of a short stream. Again, I didn't intend for it to be super long. But like I said, I can stay on here a few more minutes, maybe till like 9:45 or so. And we can continue to discuss slashers for the next few minutes. You guys can comment on anything we talked about or I brought up during the stream. But I also would like, since I trust your guys' opinions, I would like to know if you enjoyed this. Is this what you thought it was going to be when you saw the promotion that I put out for it? Or did you feel, and I promise my feelings won't be hurt. If anybody says, well, Dana, it was okay, but I was a little let down by it that I was expecting X and got Y, or was expecting Y and got Z, I would totally understand that because when people give me constructive criticism, it only serves to hopefully make my streams better in the future. So I would love to hear, pros and cons, yays and nays about what you liked, what you didn't like about this particular stream. Texas, you say, I like the remake, though, because it wasn't a bunch of crazy inbreds, and I loved the killing in the RV while the credits rolled, which I thought was unique. Thank you, Rooster. You say, thanks, Dana. Very informative. Thank you. Well, you're very welcome. Darren, you said, this has been great, Dana. I'm a slasher nut. Well, I am, Darren. I just thought that this would be kind of a little, I almost hate to call them time wasters, but just a fun little time waster before we get to the weekend. And I probably would have saved it for a Friday if I wasn't already doing the drive-in movie nights right now. Because I just feel like something like this is pretty much a great way to kick off the weekend. We talked about different movies. Perhaps some of us will even watch some of these movies that were mentioned that we haven't seen or haven't seen in a while, and give us some movie watching for this weekend. I agree, Rooster. There was great input from TJ, Darren, and Texas. Which is why I always like these guys in here. And I like you being in here, Rooster, too. You bring up some good points as well. I was really looking forward to Amy talking about her exorcist story, but I don't think she ever shared it, did she? Unless I missed it somewhere along the way. But again, I'll probably stay on here about 3 more minutes and then probably call it a night. That way I'll been on here just shy of 2 hours. I sometimes like to make these things a little bit shorter because, there's no sense in all of them being like super long streams. I know, and I know TJ was in the worst zombie films of all time, Dead Pit stream, and I heard them talking. I thought it was funny. I think TJ thought it was funny too, talking about how long we go on when we're talking about the monsters episodes. Uh, Darren, I don't really know. You say Steve doing the Dead Pit show Saturday. I haven't had a chance to ask him, Darren, but I'll try to remember to ask him so that I can let you guys know. Hey, Blair, you say, hey, Dana, favorite Scream Queen. Like my first thought would be to say Jamie Lee Curtis, but Jamie Lee Curtis could definitely be considered a Scream Queen. But when I hear somebody mention the term Scream Queen, I'm thinking of Linnea Quigley, Brink Stevens, people like that. And I think in that group of Scream Queens, I would have to say Linnea Quigley. And by the way, I've met Linnea Quigley at a convention and she was so sweet. So if you've never met her and she's at a convention, I highly recommend you at least go up and talk to her, even if you don't buy anything. So we got about another minute or so, or 45 seconds, or whatever. So if there's anything anybody else wants to bring up, Reggie, what are you doing? If anybody wants to bring up anything, or bring up any suggestions, or tell me this was a really shitty stream, and and I should never do one of these again. Um, Again, it won't hurt my feelings. Because I'm just putting this stuff out here, and if people like it, great. If they don't, that's okay. TJ says Scout Taylor Harris is good. LOL. Okay. Well, unless anybody else has anything, I think I'm gonna call it a night here. Thank you, Texas. I appreciate that. You say you enjoyed the stream. Um, Hey, Blissful, again. I'm sure you were listening because I know you like to multitask. But you say it was a great live. I enjoyed all the input. Yeah, I did too because there were some movies that were mentioned that I've never seen, and I would definitely like to see them. Um, oh, thank you, Blair. You say, yeah, we appreciate you, Dana. You have a good one too, Darren. And on that note, I'm going to skedaddle on out of here for the night, and I will see everyone on the flip side. Y'all have a good night now.